Okay there, I'm back, YouTubers, and this is the Markel Playmaster with most of the top works disassembled. Fortunately, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be disassembling this machine, because it was very detailed looking in the schematic on the Sam's Photofax. But you can see how dirty it is and how much it needs to be stripped and reconditioned. So I'm just making this short, very short video just to show you what it looks like. And then I'll do another video of it with it stripped and all the parts masked off that I don't want to be painted. And then I might actually show a demonstration of it being painted. Now this little plate here is riveted on. What I might do is drill out those rivets and then replace them with sheet metal screws to hold that little plate back on, because all that does is hold a little control knob on to change the speeds. The plate that was back here with the patent plate on it was just held on by screws to begin with, so that I was able to just easily take off. This little plate back here, I don't know what the heck that's supposed to do. I don't know if there's a definite adjustment there for 10-inch, 7-inch, and 12-inch records, but I might try to rivet that out, drill that out, and then replace it with screws when I'm reassembling the machine. The tone arm I cleaned up. Strangely enough, it didn't have any scratches or any paint loss or anything, and it turned out very nice. And that's basically what the rest of the machine will look like once it's all done. And it's a few hours after the last video that I made. And as you can see, I got the record support wheels and arms disassembled from the turntable. And I cleaned them up. Got them all degreased, degunked, and put back together so that they will run really smoothly. And over here I have the Bakelite cover that goes over the function buttons. Got it all cleaned up, all polished, all pretty. The motor has been all cleaned up of all its oil and gunk, and now it runs and looks very good. I also resurfaced the drive wheel, the idler wheel, because that was one of the main reasons why the machine wasn't running at full capacity, because the idler wheel was very shiny and smooth, and it had lost all its friction properties to rub up against the turntable, the inside rim of the turntable. Here's the record shelf assembly, all cleaned up, polished, and put back together. All the rust has been removed from the 45 RPM spindle attachment, and I used my cleaner wax to clean up the other part of the metal that was just tarnished, and it looks pretty good. Now this is the part that I told you about in my first video that needs to have some parts recast, and some of it got broken off in its past life. I told you I was going to try to use Bondo on it, but I think what I'm going to do is, they sell these pretty good adhesives that you can mold like into a putty and shape onto anything, either metal, plastic, wood, etc., and then you can shape it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that like putty, adhesive type putty, and shape the parts that are missing on this record shelf support, and then I'm going to use my Dremel tool and reshape the plastic piece so that it'll look just like it did when it was new. And I will repaint it to the proper color, and hopefully it'll look just as good as new. And this is what I used to polish up all the plastic Bakelite and the metal parts to clean them. Mother's Carnauba Cleaner Wax. It works really well, and even though it's used for cars, you can use it on plastic, and on metal, and it does a darn good job at shining things up and making them look like new again. So this is the end of this video. Maybe in the next video I will demonstrate stripping off the paint with some good stripper, some good thick cream stripper, and show you what the bare underside of this looks like. And this I'm just going to drill out the rivets and take this plate off so it'll be easier to paint this when I'm ready to do it instead of masking over this. It's bad enough I'll have to mask over that because I don't dare take this tone arm off or unsolder these wires. It's just going to be a big pain in the neck. So I'm just going to try to tape all that off and paint up this bed plate. And then in a future video we'll see what it looks like. Maybe I'll even show it being painted. I have now removed both of those little face plates that were on the bed plate on top of the phonograph, and it's all stripped as far as I'm going to get it. And now what I want to do is take a paint chip sample so that I can send it out to a paint company and have them replicate the proper color for the hammered texture paint that I need. And so I came up with an idea of removing the paint from the center where the turntable was, because that's where the paint seems to be the weakest, and I've seen some chips of paint peeling up, but I can't just peel up a little paint chip sample because it's just going to flake and become nothing but crumbs. So what I did was I got some clear cellophane tape that I figured I would put down on the loose paint where it's at its most fragile. And to make sure that I'm going to get a good paint sample up, I've also taken the butt end of this putty knife and I've been flattening it out to make sure that the paint is lifted up as best I can. Now I've noticed that underneath the tape, in fact there's the edge of one, the paint is actually lifting up from the metal where an air pocket is forming, and there you go. I got a good sample right there. So that when I peel this tape off, I'm going to get a solid paint sample that I can send off to the paint company, and maybe they can match it up with some of their Krylon paint and maybe bottle it in a paint can, and then they can send me the proper paint color I need to replicate this. And there you go. I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up good enough, but that is the exact match of what I need to repaint this bed plate. So I'm going to save that, and I've saved a few other paint chip samples that I peeled up earlier, which came out almost just as good. Now I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of how I'm going to strip this bed plate. I bought this at the automotive store. It's put out by Clean Strip and it's called Auto Strip. And it comes in a spray can. And what I'm going to do is show you by spraying a small area of this bed plate with some of this stripper, and then show you how easily it comes up. In fact, I did a little area right here, and it only took about 10 minutes for it to bubble up and come off. Now the nice thing about this paint stripper is that it doesn't come out like paint, that it covers the whole area while you're spraying. It covers only the area you're spraying on. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to spray a little bit right here, and that's all it's going to be covered with the stripper. See, it doesn't really go all the way around, all over everything. Oops. So I'm going to let that set for about 15 minutes or so, and then I'm going to take it off. Now I'm going to stop this video and resume the video as soon as the stripper has done its work. Alright, it's been several minutes now, and it looks like the paint is bubbling up very well. Let me get a little more tighter shot in there. Okay, now I'm going to test the paint. And a pretty nice clean little lifting of the paint there. I can either do one of two things. I can either give it another coat to take up any residual paint from the surface, or I can just wet it down with some lacquer thinner, if that'll take up the rest. and it's not doing too bad a job. So this was just a little experiment, a little test to do for the YouTube video. I will continue to work on this off camera, and I will show you what it looks like all stripped. Hey YouTubers, this is Amberola1B coming back at you again with a short video and to show you a little progress of how I'm doing with my Markel Playmaster record changer. In the last video I showed you that I had this plastic record stacker post that was missing some plastic out of the Bakelite, and that I told you I was going to go out and buy some epoxy putty and replace the parts that were missing. Well, I did that. And I shaped it around the part of the post and then let it dry overnight. And then I was able to shape it by sanding it down with my Dremel tool and my drill press with a sanding wheel on it to shape it, and then the Dremel tool to kind of like detail it. As you can see now, it's in pretty good condition. It doesn't look pretty right now because it's not painted, but I'm going to give it a coat of gray primer for two reasons. One, to give it an undercoating so that the top coat will have something to adhere to, and then also, after I prime it, I'll be able to see any defects or flaws that need to be filled in or corrected. What I'm going to do is use some Bondo to fill in any parts that need to be hidden, and then sand it down lightly, and then give it a few shots with some black, not black, but brown finish paint. And then I'll shine it up so it'll look just like the other parts, nice and clean and shiny, and then it should be good to go, and I'll show you what it looks like after it's primed and painted. Anyway, this is just a short video of this restoration. I'm back again with another short presentation about the progress of my Markel Playmaster. As you can see, I've already stripped and primed the bed plate of the phonograph, and it turned out quite well. I used some 1000 grit wet dry sandpaper and wet sanded the bed plate after I primed it to make it nice and smooth for the 2 or 3 finished top coats that I'm going to apply. Now, the problem I came across when I was trying to select paint for this machine was the fact that I was thinking that I could get the same hammered finish in the correct color that I wanted when I did those little paint swatches that I peeled off of the inner portion where the turntable goes. But unfortunately I wasn't able to get any, and I went online looking for some hammered finish duplicate paint, and I come to find out that they only have them in standard colors and they don't mix custom colors for people. So I bought some Sherwin-Williams enamel, and I had them mix it at the store, and this is pretty much the color that I need. It's a solid color. It's not going to be metallic or hammered finish, but I know the camera isn't picking it up very well, but that's about the color I need for this bed plate. And so I'm going to paint it that color, and I bought one of those little pressured spray containers, and it holds a little bottle underneath it, and you screw the bottle to the underside of the sprayer, and then you can mix the paint inside the bottle and spray whatever finish you need on the object that you're painting. Now over here I'm going to remove my camera from the tripod. I also had a friend of mine who owns a wood shop duplicate the original base that went on this turntable. As you can see, the base of the original was kind of worn out and broken and repaired. And it was only made out of fiberboard. I'm surprised with a machine this rare and old that it wasn't made out of real wood. As you can see, it's kind of cheap, and one of the little supports where the springs go in fell apart. And it just wasn't a great piece of wood to begin with. And so I had him duplicate the base exactly in walnut. If I can get the two of them together, you can see that they're made exactly alike, only one is made out of better wood. And I finished this myself with some dark walnut stain and some poly what they call polyshade, which is a polyurethane and walnut stain mixed together. So when I'm sanding it down in between coats with the very fine sandpaper, I can recoat it with some dark walnut so that the finish won't be worn off, because I want this to look as dark and nice as possible for when the record changer goes back on it. And then the third and last thing I want to show on this video is the little record stacker shelf post that I was finishing, and that had those two pieces of plastic missing. As you can see from the side that I have facing you right now, that was the back end of it, where that piece of plastic was broken off of it. And I fashioned it out of epoxy putty. As you can see, it looks pretty good from there. And then the very front of it was the other part that it was broken off. And I was able to duplicate that too. And so now it looks just as it did when it was brand new. Alright, so this is the end of that part of the video. The next part of the video will be the result of my painting the bed plate, so you can see what it's going to look like when it's in its semi-finished mode. I'm going to give it about 3 coats of this water-based enamel and wet dry sandpaper, about maybe 1,000–1,500 grit in between cuts. I mean in between coats. Sorry. And then we will start with reassembly. Alright, this is the end of this little short video. Bye-bye.